Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I have another build guide for Path of Exile 2. It is going to be a pretty fun one. It's going to be the Detonate Dead Infernalist. Now, this is actually the first map that I did after I spec'd into it, so still kind of fumbling with the buttons and stuff. I've actually been trying a lot of different builds on kind of the characters I already have, and that was kind of the inspiration for this build. I was kind of fishing for OP skills that I could maybe use for my character, so this is, I believe, a level 81 map with a +4 boss. So you can see some of those Detonate Deads are hitting for 1,000,000. And I'm noobing up a little bit. I could have stayed in the storm. The build can do really significant damage, and it is a blast to play. Generally speaking, you're going to look for very unique mechanics to put this build together. And I will show you guys some of the cool stuff that I have been using since. A big part of the inspiration for this build was actually a build that has been posted by DS Lily. She made this build work on a Blood Mage, and Blood Mage does do more damage because you are scaling crit, but honestly, I didn't want to reroll. I kind of wanted to play my Infernalist, and I thought that Infernalist had a unique set of advantages in the build, so I wanted to highlight those and give you guys a different version of the build. There are actually very decent reasons to play this build. So if you actually get really good gear and you min-max it, you will still be hitting for millions per Detonate Dead. DS Lily managed to get like a 20 million hit on her. She actually one-shotted the +4 Pinnacle boss. You don't need to do that. You know, if you kill it in 4 hits, it's still good. You know, it's still a lot of damage. There's a pretty good chance these mechanics will be nerfed, but, you know, we haven't had a patch in a while. It's difficult to guess what's going to happen. But there are some cool things, and if you are playing Infernalist, I have the written guide on Mobalytics. You can also play Archmage Detonate Dead. So the gearing is actually pretty similar if you have been already playing minions. You're still going to want a scepter with as many plus to minion skills as you can get. You're still going to want a helm that gives you as many minion skills as you can get. You still want, generally speaking, energy shield gear. I don't like to use Ghost Writ for this because the health becomes a little bit too low because we have a pretty unique setup. This setup actually has a tremendous amount of spirit for a non-actual minion build. So the Threaded Light, which is up to 12% spell damage per 10 spirit, literally gives you all the spell damage you need for a character. Most characters get the bulk of their spell damage from like one weapon, and then, you know, a couple hundred, maybe like 300 from the passive tree. With this single item, you get all the spell damage that you need. And you guys can see the full build there. It's a slightly higher version than I have, but on my Infernalist I'm level 93, so I have quite a bit. In terms of skills, we have Skeleton Warriors off of the Mace. This is absolutely not needed, but, you know, it's just another thing that you can blow up because you blow up your own minions. You can also Detonate Dead the corpses, but blowing up your own minions gives you an advantage of scaling minion health, and this is particularly true against bosses. Now, the Skeleton Warriors have relatively low minion health, but their life, in my case, is 11,100. The Detonate Dead does 20% base damage of that, multiplied like 5 times over by Archmage. So my Detonate Dead base damage is about their life total. Is 11,000 spell damage per cast bad? Of course it's not. That's why you're hitting bosses for millions of damage. However, ideally, you hit your Skeletal Brute with it. Now, the Skeletal Brute has some pretty meaty life. It also has a quality bonus of 20% more life if you get it to 20 quality. So a 40,000 base damage. Again, we're approaching before the percent increase, before the gems. Detonate Dead is using this as the base damage. So a base damage of 40,000 from the gem and Archmage alone is just unbelievable. That is how This build, if you are playing the Blood Mage version with crit, can do 20 million damage per cast. Okay, I think that this version of the build will probably top out around like 5 to 10, but again, the literal tankiest endgame, hardest difficulty bosses have about 20 million. So again, it's fine. You don't need to one-shot them. You can kill them in 2 hits maybe. It's fine. It's fine. The idea that we can actually use our minions with our Detonate Dead comes online through the form of... Oh, it's not Soul Offering. Where is it here? Sacrifice. So skills can use your undead reviving minions in place of corpses. And as a downside, they revive more slowly. It's also a heavy spirit reservation, which is pretty important to know. We are also scaling largely with Archmage. And again, Archmage is also a heavy spirit reservation. So again, part of the reason why I feel like this build is very competitive, possibly even a better all-arounder than Blood Mage, is because these gigantic spirit costs, because that's before you have to actually use all your minions, and you really do want to be using Grim Feast. You know, those Energy Shield remnants are going to matter a lot because we are actually using Energy Shield. Actually, perhaps I should give you guys the Kripp in this position so you can see. So we have 5,400 Energy Shield. And the main really interesting thing about this build, it's one of the only builds in the entire game where you are really just using the secondary effect of Detonate Dead, which is 20% of the corpse's life. And the damage that's on the skill itself doesn't really matter. We're not actually dealing fire damage. It just deals physical damage equal to 20% of the corpse's life. That's all we're doing. Now, in order for you not to completely obliterate your army, you do need to have effects that corpses consumed by summon skills have a chance not to be destroyed. So you can get 25% on a gem, and you need that gem, by the way. You can get 25% on the passive tree, and there is a wand that I chose not to use, which has another 25%. Now, that wand is otherwise a pretty bad item. Because of the severe spirit costs of the build, you are basically choosing to use Scepter with the wand, because the skill gems on the minions give them tremendous amount of life, right? And you need the spirit anyway. So you're basically choosing to use either the wand or the focus. Now, if you use the wand in the offhand, you won't consume your corpses as much, which might make it a bit easier in the lower stages to kind of get it running. Like in my case, you know, they do blow up. Now, the thing is, I do have skeletal priests. I actually don't know why they're... Oh, I think I may have just blown them up. So I'm also running 2 clerics. I'm also running 3 brutes. And again, this is largely because you get a lot of bonus spirit playing Infernalist. And a big part of that is the Ascendancy. So this is the first build that I've seen where we actually get the entire Infernalist claw. So we get the mana from life, we get the spirit from life, and we get the energy shield from life. And then we convert all of our energy shield into Eldritch Battery, which is why we have nearly 4,000 mana, and I don't have any good mana gear. Like, I don't have Dream Fragments, which is 20% increased mana. I have no sockets that give percent mana. So this is a gigantic mana pool for not using basically almost any percent mana. This is just raw mana at this point, save for a few passives. And we're just getting a lot of mana from the energy shield conversion, from the energy shield on gear. We're getting a lot of mana from the literal mana conversion. And we're getting a lot of spirit, which kind of gets all of that online. This is 365 spirit. Now, you might be wondering, how do I have energy shield with Eldritch Battery? The reason is we have the Everlasting Gaze Amulet. so we gain maximum mana as extra maximum energy shield. This is done after the conversion, otherwise it would just kind of loop on itself type of thing. So I don't think this is bugged, I think this is working as intended. So a lot of builds are actually utilizing this tech where they have a giant mana pool and they convert that to base energy shield, then they get energy shield passives. So you see if I take this off, I actually have no energy shield. So this amulet is giving me currently my entire energy shield, which is 5,400 right now. I'm using a few of the gear pieces on my Titan, so I think I had 5,800 with a few slightly better gear pieces that gave me a little bit more mana. But the reason the build is a lot tankier than most is because we actually use Grim Feast as well, and because we're using Detonate Dead on our own minions, our minions are actually dying, so we are able to overflow off killing our own minions kind of like whenever you want. It's obviously pretty slow going, but this is definitely a hardcore viable build if you have these items already, because you have a slower version as you may, but you effectively have meditate in a way. You are able to actually get an overflowed energy shield pool. So that's kind of how that works. It's a very cool tech where you get a tremendous amount of base damage from your minions with skill levels. They act as tanks for you. With Infernalist, you get a huge amount of mana and spirit. You convert the spirit into mana cost. The mana becomes a damage multiplier with Archmage. So your passive tree, I mean, if you want to go to the Mobalytics link and see, we're basically just getting energy shield nodes and area of effect. That's it. There's like no reason to get damage. We're actually here where we can get like these nodes where some players actually path from the entire other side of the passive tree to get them. It's just not even worth it. We just do too much damage. Just too much damage and blowing them up. I actually just noticed that my priests are bugged. They're actually just missing. But whatever. You get the idea. We have a few other things to do to increase damage. So you can use Soul Offering, which increases your damage by a substantial amount, sacrificing a minion. And we can use Mana Tempest, and I didn't do that in the highlight clip. Basically, you stand in it and you get a massive damage multiplier, and when you cast stuff in it, it increases the mana cost further and further. But the main reason that we're actually able to manage this amount of mana while not being a Stormweaver, I believe it's called, is because we are actually not playing Mind over Matter. Okay, so we just have good enough survivability with Energy Shield from the Amulet conversion. Not using Mind over Matter means that we actually don't need that much mana regen. I currently have 553 mana regen per second, so it's a crazy huge amount on a pretty well-rounded character. And again, if you guys want the full details, make sure to check out the guide on Mobalytics. And for you Infernalists out there that want to try something other than waiting for your minions to do damage, this is a pretty cool option utilizing some unique mechanics that, yes, are possibly likely to get nerfed, but I would say that more of the nerfs that we might see actually have to do with the mana scaling on Stormweavers themselves. The Stormweaver Ascendancy is taking up about half of the top players right now, so it has a massive overperformance. There is some chance that this build is not significantly or nerfed at all, because they really might just nerf the hell out of that Ascendancy to kind of balance things out. So you might actually be playing this build for a while, and it is a blast to play. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.